Hello there. ARForms has just launched its version 3.0 of its amazing form builder. Now this still has the best price. It has tons of new features. It's super fast loading now, and it's got much improved styling options for you, both as advanced users and even basic users. So let's jump right in and build a new form. As you're used to with the version 2.0, over here in the left nav, you've got your ARForms plugin information. We're going to first manage our forms, which gives us a list of everything we've created so far. What I'm going to do is add a new form. First thing I want to do here is add a title, and you can also add a description. And this is new. You can select a theme. So for the form fields, for example, and the buttons and everything, you have the old standard style, a newer rounded style, or the most modern, which is material design. Let's go with material. And as usual, you could select a template. So this would help you get started very quickly for a quick donation form, for example, but what we're going to create is a blank form. If you use version 2.0, you'll notice there's a big upgrade here on version 3. On the same screen, you can both edit your form or you can create new styling options for it without having to switch back and forth. So it's nice being able to start and finish your project on one screen. What I'm going to do to start this off is drag and drop a single line text. Let's get a first name in here. Just by clicking on it, you can make your edits. One feature is the duplicate to make it simple. So I'm going to duplicate that field. Let's call this last name. Now let's add an email address. And that's a pretty good form already. I want to show you some additional options we have though. First of all, scroll all the way through, look at all the different form elements you can drag and drop. You can drag and drop images, create a nice header image. You can even offset the form so it drops below the image and it will still look great on mobile. One thing I want to do right now is add a file upload feature because this is a pretty neat option for you. What I want to do is go into the options here, and within the uploader, what you can do is have specific types. So you can only allow people, for example, to upload images. This can be very helpful depending on what your application is. And there's a number of different validation fields you can add to this. You can even have a droppable area to make it simple for people to drag their file into that area and upload. And most importantly, maximum upload size, so you don't get a massive file that comes up to your server. What you can also do with this is really easy to add multiple columns. So what I want to do here is up on this left side, this shows you how many different columns you can have. I'm going to select a 2-column format. You'll notice that it immediately changes to 2, and I can simply drag any field into that second position. Now I've got a nice 2-column format. This is super cool. You can actually drag this over if you want the first name to be a little bit smaller. See how it shows the percentage? That's nice. So now I've got, I can make it about 40% and 60% just by dragging. Very easy. So just to continue on here, what I would like to do, I'm going to get rid of this for the purpose of this demo. So very easy to delete things. Just confirm it and it's gone. Now I want to show you some of the styling options we could do to our form. You have basic styling options and advanced. Just scrolling through some of the basic ones. Very simple to change a color. So your design can become red and certain elements will switch. Of course, you can customize it if you'd like. Font options, very simple to change your field sizes. Form width, validation message style. Right now it's standard, but modern gives you a nice floating validation if somebody enters something incorrectly. And we'll leave that on the bottom. Switching over to advanced, you can just, if you don't want to display the title and description, that not always is what you want to do. It's really nice to be able to just switch that off and only have the form elements. Let's change our title alignment to center and the margin. You could do this without using CSS. You can center your form. Of course, you can add a background image behind, which looks really beautiful with the material design because it shows through the fields. And here's where you can add padding. So you can have the entire form offset and add any borders that you'd like to do, and windows opacity. So if you want it to be solid color or semi-opaque, very simple to do simply by dragging this. We'll make it 0.6. Before carrying on down below, I'd like to switch over to custom CSS because there's a really neat feature here. If you want to add any custom CSS, just by using the drop-down element here, you can actually see a list of all the different elements that you can modify, and it just makes it easy. Now you can just start typing in your CSS. Now let's move on to input field options. So we're still changing the style here. We can change the alignment of our label options. Notice how they all switch to the right. Simply click it and it's done. You can hide labels if you'd like. Input field description options, you can change the size, the alignment of description options. Input fields, you can change the width, text direction. Right now we have it set for transparent fields, which is great if you have a colored or a image background. And you can make it, you can have fields required or not, and if you want it to be required but it doesn't show the required star, then you can do that. Just click this button. Field spacing, field border settings, change the format depending on which part of the world you're in, and checkbox and radio style. You can actually make a custom radio button that uses images, custom checkboxes that use images. That is very, very modern, very cool, and it's something that you don't see too often. That'll really make your form stand out. So your submit button settings, this is something you're probably used to, but there's some pretty great features as we scroll down. You can have a background image on your button and still use the HTML text within your button and have it look modern. And even have a different image that appears in the background of your button when you hover. You can change the font settings of your button as well. And of course your border, you can make it super thick if you want, whatever style you'd like, or maybe go really thin and make it a little more modern. So I'm going to change this to 1. So we've got just a real small radius, real thin line, and the margin is set just perfectly here, but I can change it easily. Now let's jump into email notifications. There's a whole string of other options across the top, and we're going to go through each one briefly. For email notifications, this is a great feature. You can actually send an auto response directly to the person who submitted the form. And one really cool and very unique feature, you can configure conditional notifications. So you'll only notify them and only send them an email if, for example, that if the first name contains a certain name, you can have it send them an email or not. It's very neat. You can let your imagination go free here. I'm sure there's different ways that you have with your application to send or not send an email. Let's scroll down here. Of course, you can configure your message and drop in personalized fields. So whichever of these you copy and paste into the body of the email, those will be replaced with the actual values based on what they submitted. Scrolling down, you can also send an automatic response to the admin user after the form is submitted. And just like with the email above, you can actually add personalized fields, as you can see the list down here. Any of these personalized fields you can also add to your admin message. So if you have a customer service team that needs to submit these manually, you can add those here. Probably not necessary because, as you'll see very soon, we integrate with most of the email service providers. So I'm going to scroll up here and turn this off for now for the simplicity of this demo. Let's move on to the conditional rules. This is a big improvement of version 3.0 and it's very unique. You can add conditional rules across your entire account. So if you have 5 different forms that you've created with this, you can actually apply conditional rules across your entire account. So for example, you can hide fields based on certain criteria. So if the email field equals something, then you can conditionally hide an additional field that might have appeared beneath it. So it's really easy to do. You can add multiple conditions. So in here we would just say hide. So the first name, for example, or you can add a value. If certain things are present, that you can set a static value of yes or no, or whatever it is for your particular application. And adding an additional condition, let's say yes, is as simple as clicking that button, and you can stack these and nest these till your heart's content. Very nice feature. I'm going to remove these just for the purpose of this demo. Submit action. So once somebody submits the form, there's a number of different things you could do. You can display a message, redirect them to a URL, display content from another page. So you can kind of pull that into the results. You can hide the form after the user submits, so you're not constantly asking them for the same information every time they visit your site. That's very, very helpful. You can send form data into a custom webhook. And don't worry, we do have APIs. You don't need to use a webhook for most applications. Show confirmation. So this is very nice. After somebody submits, a great feature is you can actually show them a confirmation of what they submitted so they can look it over and then confirm. And I'll show you this later in the demo, so I'm going to leave this on. Of course, you can customize the text that is presented to them. And look at this. We actually have conditions for the submission as well. So you can enable the submit button only if all of the following conditions are met. And this is pretty nice if you have a lot of people that tend to submit incomplete fields or enter incorrect information. Use this where they won't even see the submit button until they follow the rules and get it right. Very, very helpful. Submit action we just covered. I'm going to jump into opt-ins. So this just gives you a very quick idea of all of the different email providers and CRM providers that are out of the box API integrated. So any one of these you can select and enable, and it will drop their information directly into those service providers. But there's one feature that I need to point out here that you may never have seen before, and that is conditions. Once again, there's a really great conditional feature where, let's say you want to be GDPR compliant and only send people emails if they have opted into your database. You can add a checkbox and make it so if that individual did not submit yes for that checkbox field value, then it will not add it to your CRM. It'll still allow them to submit the form and it will say thank you, but it will not add it to your CRM so you don't accidentally send those people information or marketing materials. And what I'm going to do right now, let's add a checkbox. And I can show you how that field works when we go into the demo here further along, when I show you how it actually works. What I want to do is let's go find a checkbox and add it, because there's something really neat that you can do here. So with this checkbox, I'm going to go in and change the settings. So field description, let's call this select devices. And for the checkbox values, what I'm going to do is look at this orange field. This is new. So what I can do is I can create images. It's kind of like a poll. So what I'm going to do is let's upload an image. Let's upload a second image. So now what we have is images that people can select. So I'm going to say, so I can select multiple or I can select single. And let's go back in, let's edit what it says. So for the value, you just click on it and change it. This one will be multiple, and this one will be single. So that's the value. I'm sorry, I just changed the value that will pass to the database. I'm also going to make the exact same change here. Okay, now it looks the way I want. What I want to do though, let's put this on a second step. So to add a new step, all you need to do is go down to page break, and let's add a page break between these. That's cool. I like that. So let's have a real quick preview of how that looks. Now we've got our test 3 form, and it's got 2 steps. So it's asking for my first name, my last name, my email address, and then for me to continue. So I'm going to say test, email is test, and go next. Now it's going to ask me to select my device. I've got them selected by default. So I'm going to say multiple and then submit. That worked great. So now it's asking me to confirm. Remember that feature I was just showing you? So what it's doing is showing me what I just selected, and it's asking me to confirm. Looks good. Now let's just make a really quick check here on tablet preview. Let's make sure it looks good. Make sure it looks good in mobile. Yep, everything looks to be in order. Everything's stacked nicely. So the preview looks good. I'm going to move on. So I'm ready to jump into other options now. So we're going to check out the general options here. This is really neat. You can use people's cookies to actually auto-save forms that they haven't completed yet. So if they have to go back and check their records and then come back to the form, as long as that cookie is still present, it's going to auto-populate all the fields that they've already entered. That'll save them a lot of time. You can also prevent duplicate form entries based on a number of different criteria. Current logged in user, specific form fields, this is neat. You can actually select specific fields, so if the email address is exactly the same, it's going to prevent a duplicate. Very convenient. You can prevent storing visitor analytics data, and you can disable the form submission after X number of entries or after a specific amount of time. Hidden input fields. So you can add hidden input fields, which can always be a big lifesaver if you're doing things like tracking, for example. You can add a parameter to a URL when you're sending people to your forms from an email, for example, and say source equals email. And if you add a hidden field called email, then what it'll do is drop in the value of email into that source field. And of course, you can preset a default value as well. Submit tracking script. If you use Google Analytics or virtually any other analytics provider, drop the script in here, and only after somebody successfully submits to your form will it fire that JavaScript. Export form. Oh, let's go and save what we've created after I give it a little better name. So I'm going to add a great name, save this. Now we're ready to start exporting. So what I can do with my project is export it. Now I've got a nice text file, so I can migrate this to a different application. Excuse me. So when I say different application, I mean, let's say I have ARForms set up on a different server or a different asset that I work with. I can export that to a different ARForms instance. Now this convert field type is very, very useful. Now this cuts across the entire, or your entire form, and what it does is you can select a field and convert it to a different type without losing any of the values. So let's say you're 5 weeks into a project and you accidentally set up a single text field for capturing a piece of data, and you've got people entering all sorts of different data and you want to normalize it. So you decided, you know what, I probably should have chosen a drop-down box. What you can do, excuse me, select that name field, for example. Well, let's see here. Yeah, select last name, for example, and you could change that last name single line to a different style. So either radio buttons or a drop-down list. And when I click confirm, it's going to change that field type across the entire form project. So any fields in there would be switched over for the new field type. I'm not going to do that in this particular instance. So now that we've configured all the settings on our form, what I want to do is show you the different ways you can deploy. Click on shortcodes. I can add this inline to my WordPress page. I can also have this as a pop-up, and you can configure your pop-up to go in any number of ways. I mean, we can have this as a sticky tab on the right side. You can have this form pop up after a number of seconds on exit intent. You can have the pop-up form show up conditionally. There's a number of different ways to configure this. What's nice about that is you don't need a separate marketing plugin in order to be, dynamically capturing email addresses, for example, and opt-ins as people browse your site. Down here you have PHP function. This is a little bit more advanced. But what I'm going to do, let's grab the inline form. So now that we have our short code, what I'm going to do is go over to Pages and let's add a new one. We're also going to call this test page 3, and let's add our short code and publish. And let's check it out. Okay, so here's our form. What I'm going to do here, I've got a default value of yes that I placed earlier. So I'm going to overwrite that with Craig Sincaresti. Email address is craig@mp3vehicle. Let's go to the next step in the form, which is to select our device, just a single device, and submit. Here's where it's going to ask me to confirm. Everything looks good, and I'm going to confirm. Form is successfully submitted. Thank you. Now let's pop back over. Sorry about that. Go back to our dashboard and take a look at ARForms. See how that entry looks. So when we click on Form Entries, this is a list of everybody who's submitted. There's no entry found. Looks like I think I left the first name blank, and that was a required field. So basically all of your entries would be showing up here, and you could do things like edit them. Just by clicking on an individual, you can edit their name directly in line, which is really helpful. So let's see, that was test form 3. What I can do, oh, there it is. I'm sorry, I just didn't choose a form. So the first name is blank, Sincaresti, Craig, and MP3 vehicle. What I can do is preview this. I can export it to PDF, or I can delete it. So that is really helpful. And what I want to do now is jump into general settings. Let's see. Oh, before I move on, I want to show you some analytics. So as you can see, you've got daily, monthly, yearly. You can do this for all of your forms or specific ones. And there is a new feature that's been added, which is the map. Very helpful to see on a global map where all of your people are coming from. So I'm in the United States. So you can see it's got one entry with 2 views. And once you start adding a great number of entries, which I'm sure you will shortly, you can see this will be darker color, so it'll show you like kind of a heat map of where these are showing up around the country. You can also view the analytics as a bar chart. So now I want to jump into the general settings, show you some additional options. So reCAPTCHA configuration, very important to note here that the team at ARForms has created an invisible kind of a reCAPTCHA style anti-spam algorithm that's proprietary to them, and it works great. So it keeps most of the bots out, so you don't really need a reCAPTCHA. There's no extra step for your users. If you really want to be sure you're not going to get any spam, you can use the reCAPTCHA and configure it here. Default messages on the form you can update very easily here. Quickly update your email settings. There's a number of other settings here as well. Global CSS is simple to add. and some advanced JavaScript and CSS as well that you could load. Now, email marketing tools, this is important. Look at all of the different providers that you can very quickly add. So if you use Mailchimp, which many people do, it's as simple as setting up a Mailchimp API. It takes just a couple minutes and they don't charge for that. Once they give you your key, just paste it in here. And as soon as you verify it, it's going to allow you to just map those fields. So when you create your fields in ARForms, you can directly map those straight over to Mailchimp. So your database stays clean. A large number here, and you can also add custom integrations as an add-on to your ARForms purchase. So that custom and Zapier integration would allow you to add even more. Import, export, you can export your project, including your entries or your forms and your entries, and archive those, or move it over to another instance of ARForm. You can also add some add-ons, like I just mentioned. They're simple to add. It's literally one click to activate payment processing. You can use your form to collect payments. If you're in politics and you want people to have a simple way of joining your list and also giving you a $5 donation, they can very easily do that. Just activate your PayPal, Stripe, or any of the other different payment providers. Your Stripe, Authorize.net. There's a number of different plugins or add-ons that you can add to your ARForms instance just by clicking a button, and even advanced integration for Mailchimp, which is very helpful. So that's the end of the demo. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you purchase ARForms. It's the best price for the features you're getting. It's got a whole number of unique features that you won't find on any other provider, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.